practice what you preach. This is India's message to Turkey, a country that loves to preach the world on what's right and what isn't. A country which, in tandem with Pakistan, has kept the rhetorical fire on Kashmir alive at global platforms. Up until now, New Delhi responded to Ankara's adventurism, keeping bilateral ties in mind. But this time, it pulled no punches. Let's tell you what happened. On Monday, the United Nations Human Rights Council began its 46th session. The foreign minister of each country took turns to speak. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, spoke about terrorism, the pandemic and vaccines. America's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, spoke about democracy, peace and stability. And the Turkish Foreign Minister decided to score a self-goal. He spoke about Kashmir. Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, that's what he's called, tried to target New Delhi over the Kashmir issue. He claimed that India was trampling on the rights of Kashmiris, but he made no mention of Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism in the region. The Pakistani embassy in Turkey could not be happier. It tweeted the Turkish foreign minister's speech. With the collusion evident, India decided to hit back. Seema Pujani, India's second secretary at the United Nations, did not mince words. She reminded Turkey of the UNHRC resolutions on Cyprus. And in case you haven't followed Turkey closely, this is what it's about. Turkey occupied northern Cyprus in 1974. In 1984, the UNHRC passed a resolution on transferring the area to the United Nations administration. But despite repeated calls, the Turkish occupation continues. So India decided to raise that issue. I have that statement with me. It says, as regards the remarks made by Turkey, we find them completely unacceptable. It is ironical for a country which has trampled upon its own civil society to pass unjustified comments on others' internal matters. As far as the subject of UN resolutions is concerned, we would advise Turkey to practice what it preaches by first implementing those UN resolutions that apply to it. It's a very strongly worded statement, one that Turkey would do well to remember the next time it decides to target India at Pakistan's behest. That said, this is not the first time that Turkey has tried to target India over Kashmir. The Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has never wasted an opportunity to raise the Kashmir issue. In 2017, Erdogan traveled to India, and ahead of his arrival in New Delhi, we interviewed him. You know what he told WION? He sought Turkey's role in the Kashmir conflict. He tried to intervene in a bilateral issue by suggesting a multilateral dialogue. And he said this just days before he was to land in India as a guest. This was just the beginning. 2 years later, in 2019, Mr. Erdogan spoke at the United Nations General Assembly, and he said that 8 million people are stuck in Kashmir. He accused India of human rights violations. Then in February 2020, Mr. Erdogan traveled to Islamabad. He addressed a joint session of Pakistan's parliament and tried justifying Islamabad's cross-border terrorism in Kashmir. A few weeks later, he made a statement in Ankara, and listen to this carefully. He said, India right now has become a country where massacres are widespread. This is the Turkish president speaking. What massacres? Massacres of Muslims. By whom? By Hindus. How will these people make global peace possible? It is impossible. When making speeches, since they have a large population, they say, we are strong, but that is not strength. A country where the massacre of Muslims is widespread, says a leader who has clamped down on the rights of Kurdish Muslims in his own country. A leader whose mercenaries are murdering Muslims in Libya. All I'm trying to say is that Erdogan likes to be seen as a defender of Islam, as a leader of Muslims across the world, but he doesn't really practice what he preaches. He may have made Islam the center of Turkish politics and the guiding line of Turkey's foreign policy, but it's all a political stunt. Ask the Uyghur Muslims of China. It's a tool to keep his power intact. The Turkish economy has become a roast. Trade deficit has surged to 154%. The lira lost 20% against the dollar in 2020 alone. The possibility of European and American sanctions still looms large. Erdogan has picked fights with neighbors and allies. His friends are now Pakistan and China. And now he brings up Kashmir to keep his domestic audience happy and to keep his allies like Pakistan pleased. Too bad he cannot fool the rest of the world. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.